Hey, good morning, you fine, fabulous book people. It's a damn fine day to talk about some books, and we're here for Top 5 Friday. This will be the first Top 5 Friday. I'm going to do these to show you my top 5 things, mostly books in certain categories. Um, eh, I'm not going to force it and make up a bunch of crazy. I'm not going to tell you my top 5 books that start with the letter L or anything like that, but I'm going to occasionally do these. I feel like at the end of the day, I'm here to journal my reading journey. Um, I personally try to review as many books as I can, but a review does not get as many clicks and views, which I'm not saying I focus on clicks and views, but as like a best of or a top list or whatever. Anyway, so that being said, click subscribe, click like if you liked it. Maybe throw a comment out there. Let's talk. Tell me your favorites in the particular category that I'm talking about. Now, today, we're going to talk about top 5 independent small press horror. Now, this is not really a top 5. I may do another video just like this as the books. Basically, what this is, cut my own self off. I do that often. It is books that I had on the shelf behind me that were 5 stars for me when I read them. Just one absolute wonderful reading experiences. Um, there was a time in the well-read beard whatever where like for 3 years there, all I did really was independent small press horror. I mean, I probably did 100 a year, 100 books a year of independent small press horror that were sent to me for review. And so while I am a little bit out of practice on that, like, if it's come out in the last 2 years, I probably haven't read it. For like a 3 year period there, I read everything and then read a lot of like authors I would get into's like previous works and whatnot. So, anyway, 5 star books that were on the shelf behind me that I grabbed today and threw together, and that's where we're at. So, I'm not going to go too much into these. Most of these should have reviews out there. Some of them don't. I got rid of a lot of my older content. But some of these probably still have reviews out there. So I'm just gonna show them to you. We're not gonna like really talk about them too much, but anyway, the rules of the road. C.B. Jones. This book is awesome. It first of all, love the look. Love it's got a look and a feel. Like the cover feels different than I mean, it's not plastic, but it feels almost coated. Um, it looks like an old like VHS case, new release, and I mean, it just I don't know. Anyway, this book it's a lot of stuff kind of thrown into one thing, all under and by a lot of stuff I mean like zombies and other horrific type things, but all thrown into this umbrella of these rules of the road. You're out driving, late at night, and radio something cuts in and starts telling you this rule that you have to follow, and if you don't follow, something horrible is gonna happen. And once you hear it, you're kind of stuck, and like a lot of different things. But one of these is like, you ever been driving down the road and you see like a shoe, just a single boot or flip flop, or I mean, God forbid, a kid's shoe, Gage Creek, sitting there. You ever seen that? Yeah, I know I have. And so now every time I see it, it's like, what the, but, there was a rule, involving that really odd thing that we just, you know, see. I remember one time, I think it was right when I was reading this book, I'm riding down the road and it was snowing. It had snowed. Everything was white and there was this bright pink child's Easter basket right on the side of the road, and just odd. And this book is like that. It's just odd. There's a lot of cool shit in here. I really liked C.B. Jones's. style of storytelling, and the culmination on this one I remember was pretty awesome. But this is The Rules of the Road by C.B. Jones. Now, I don't remember for certain on this one, but a lot of these books won like my novel of the year, that particular year. Like they were the favorite book that I read that particular year. So next up here, I've got, and again, these are in no order, but they were all 5 stars for me. I've got Sunray Alice by Jeremy Hepler. This is a really, really cool story. Got some historical horror fiction element to it. A I just really, really like this book. I really like the characters. I really love the the theme of this massive garden, and kind of what that came from, like where that came from. It's I mean, I can't really give. I'm not really going to give you any details of it. I really think about reading these synopsises, but we'd be here. Synopses. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to read the synopses, but this book came out under a different press, and then that press shut its doors, and it was kind of left hanging. And Macabre Inc. picked it up and put it out. I loved this book, loved it. This is Sunray Alice by Jeremy Hepler, and Hepler in general is great. I've read another book of his called Cricket Hunters. This one I think was more like 4 stars for me, but you cannot go wrong checking out Jeremy Hepler. All right, so up next we've got from Raw Dog Screaming Press, and they're really they put. I mean, again, it's been a while. I used to be like on their list of reviewers. They used to send me most of what they would come out with, and a lot of their stuff is poetry, which I dig. I love. I, I haven't gotten back into it yet, but I love having like a poetry read going at the same time that I've got a fiction read, a audio read, a short story read. I like to have that fourth thing going, but I haven't really gotten back into the poetry. Anyway, this is a novel, The Fourth Horror by Evie Knight, put out by Raw Dog Screaming Press, and this one was 5 stars. I don't know. This is going to be a big statement. I don't know that I've read another small press horror book that had the feminist power that this one does. I mean, very, very strong feminist themes of Lilith, biblical type horror stuff going on here. I just really, really dug this book. This is The Fourth Horror by Evie Knight. Now, excuse me. Hold on. I got 2 more to show you. We're going to talk about Wormwood by Chad Lutsky and Tim Meyer. And again, briefly, you cannot go wrong with Tim Meyer or Chad Lutsky. Chad Lutsky is one of my faves. Faves sounds. I'm not a teenager. One of my favorites that I found. Honestly, he had a lot to do with me going down that road of independent small press horror because I ran into him on Twitter, picked up one of his books, and before I knew it, a lot of his stuff is really short, actually even shorter than this. A lot of it's novella type stuff. But I've read probably 10 or 12 of Lutsky's books. I've probably read, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 of Tim Meyer's books. But this one was awesome. And it's, coming of age stories, some, just really, this whole idea of, a couple young boys that, running into this, a little bit rambunctious wild girl, and it's and you read a book like this and you're like, why would they do that? Like, why would they do those extreme things because the girl wanted them to? Well, I was a teenage boy at one point anyway, but I'm not going to go too much into this one. Here's a special edition from Thunderstorm Books, but it's a signed edition, but I believe, I don't know, I'm not even going to guess. I'm not going to guess who this came out with, but first. But anyway, Wormwood by Chad Lutsky, Tim Meyer. Chad Lutsky's awesome. Stirring the Sheets is one of my favorites of his, but he's got some other great ones of Foster Homes and Flies. There's a bunch of them, but and then Tim Meyer's got a kind of another book I liked, kind of a massive, almost Stephen King esque, like story called Malignant Summer with a. And I'm not going to pull it. I want to turn around and pull it and show you because it had one of the coolest covers of any of the books that I read during that period of time. But anyway, this one here, though, took the cake at 5 stars. Chad Lutsky and Tim Meyer. All right. Last one. And this is Michael Clark's The Patience of a Dead Man. And this is the complete. Now, this book was originally published in 3 books. I want to say that this has been changed. Like the title is no longer The Patience of a Dead Man. I don't know that to be certain, but since getting back into this world, I have seen something called Mildred Wells, but I don't know if it's like the saga of Mildred Wells or the story of, but it's something to do with Mildred Wells. So if you go to look for this book, keep that in mind. But this is the complete Patience of a Dead Man trilogy. Now, I read this series, and first 2 books were 5 for me. The last book was a little bit lower, and we'll get into that. But The Patience of a Dead Man is the first book, and it was one of the coolest ghost stories that I read during that period of time. I mean, and what I liked about it was that provided you with a map of the house, a map of the grounds. And these grounds, there was a house and a barn and a grove, which used to be like a Christmas tree farm where all the trees were in rows. And anyway, just this, and a pond and this. And so you had this map in your head of where all these, you know, ghastly, horrific events were taking place. And I just remember it being super enjoyable. And when I had gotten it, it was one of those books that Michael Clark was fairly new to the scene, and I hadn't. There had been a lot of books I've been reading and reviewing, but I wasn't the only one, right? Like if I was reading and reviewing it, 5, 6 other horror reviewers had already talked about it. And when I got his book, I felt like I was the first or one of the first people to start talking about it. And I absolutely loved it. And for me, that's when the magic happens. When I get something that no one else is really, taking a chance on, and I do, and it's awesome. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Anyway, but the first book, one of the greatest ghost stories, one of the greatest ghost stories that I read during that period of time. I mean, there's probably not another, independently published ghost story that I like more. I mean, it's just the truth. Now, the second book, Dead Woman Scorned, was also 5 stars for me, and it won my novel of the year that year, which I don't know if that was 2020 or 2021 or what that was. But it took, like I said, a phenomenal ghost story and just turned everything up. I mean, gave you, because Mildred Wells is not your average ghost. She has powers. She is a revenant. And I'm not going to go into the details of a revenant, but she has abilities that take her, the dangerousness of her and all of that, the I guess the I don't know, it takes it past a normal haunting. But Dead Woman Scorned, while advancing the story, goes back and tells the story of Mildred Wells and tells the story of how she became this, how she and why she's here at this house, and all of that. And for me, like it just took a great ghost story that could have stopped right there and gave it a lore, gave it a legend, gave it um more, a lot more. Like I said, I mean, great story, but exploded it. So really, really liked book 2. Now book 3 is a wrap up. I mean, it's bringing everything to a head and finishing off that story. And to be honest with you, now I haven't read them back to back to back to back. It may not feel this way, but I read the books, maybe over the course of the year, 1, and then 2 came out, and I read 2, and then a year later 3 came out. Anyway, but um, it felt like book three was a bit rushed and things were a bit, sped up. But all in all, I mean, the series as a whole, still 5 stars for me, and just absolutely knocked it out of the park. Michael Clark has another book. I don't know if it's still called this either, but it was called Hell on High, and it was a horror book, another ghost story, but Everest, Mount Everest, and for me, those are my two favorite things. I love nonfiction about Everest, and I love ghost stories. So, and I actually reviewed that one early, like really um did like a I'm not a yeah I guess a beta read. I did a beta read of that book. Really liked that one too, and it was called Hell on High. I actually had a small part in naming it, but yeah, this book absolutely awesome. I mean, I cannot think of a better way to spend your holiday. But yeah, this is Well Read Beard. So that is a top five, kind of. I mean, not top five, but five-star books that I read, you know, 3, 4 years ago that I wanted to kind of I guess maybe put a shine a light on. Shine a light on. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're enjoying all your books, all of them as much as I am. If not, you're reading the wrong damn books.